I will now show you how to pass a structure to a function by reference, so to pass a pointer to a structure to a function. And this works basically exactly like you would expect, exactly as in the case of regular variables. But we'll look at an example nonetheless. We'll start out with the same code we had before. We declare the structure, student here, where we store the first name, last name, birth year, and average grade of a student. And we already wrote a function printStudent, which is down below here, that prints a student record. So we pass to it a structure student. Down here it's called stud, and we print out the student's first and last name, their birth year, and their average grade. So this time we'll declare a variable student. Let's call it me again, but we're not initializing it right now. We want to read the values that are stored in me with a function. Ultimately, we want to print out the student. So we're going to call the function printStudent and pass me to it. But before that, we need to place values into the variable me. And to do so, we'll write a function readStudent, which will ask the user to enter a first name, last name, and so forth. And since that function will modify the variable student, we're going to have to pass the address of me to this function. Now let's write that function. Again, the function doesn't return anything, so the return type is void. readStudent is the name of the function, and this time we're passing to it a pointer. So the data type is struct_student, but it's a pointer, and let's call it student PTR so that we remember it's a pointer. But first we will ask the user to enter a first name, enter a new student record. I'm just being a little fussy here. First name, and now comes our scanf statement. What do we want to read? We want to read a %s because we're reading a name, that's a string. And where do we want to store it? We want to store it in the variable that is pointed to by student pointer. So first of all, we need to dereference student pointer so that we can actually get to that variable. And we want to access the component first name. We do not need an address in front of this variable. This is the variable that we're trying to modify. This part, this whole variable. We need to dereference the pointer so we get to the structure, and then we want to modify the component first name. We don't need the ampersand in front because it's a %s. We're reading a string here. Similarly, we're going to read the last name. So again, a scanf with a %s. And again, we need to dereference the student pointer. And this time we're going to access the last name component. And again, we don't need the ampersand up front because it's a string that we're reading. Next, however, we want to so we do a scanf. And let's first of all write down the %d because it's going to be an integer we're reading. And the variable that we wish to modify is student pointer dot birth year. But in order to do so, we want to modify an integer. This whole thing here is an integer type variable. In order to modify an integer variable with scanf, we need to put an ampersand in front of it. The scanf function expects the address of the integer type variable. And finally, we want to print, please enter the average grade. And a scanf, this time we want a %lf because the average grade is stored as a double. And again, let's write down which variable we're trying to modify. It's dereferencing student PTR, so going to the place in memory where the record is stored. And we want to access the component average grade because average grade is a variable of type double. We need an ampersand in front of it because that's what the scanf function expects. And that's about it. So now we have a function that reads a student record, and next we call the print student function, and then the program terminates. Let's compile and run this. And I forgot my prototype. So I need to take this and move it all the way up top here, right underneath the print student function. There we go. There's my prototype. Let's compile. And there's still something wrong. Oh, I'm missing an F. Enter a new student record. Print F. Let's edit that. Missing an F right there. Okay, now we got it. Okay, so first the structure B is declared. There it shows up in memory without any values written into it because I didn't initialize it. And now the function readStudent is called, and we're passing to it this pointer, student pointer. Let's find that pointer, student pointer here. Student pointer is simply a memory location, the location that points to where the student record is stored. So here we have FFB8, and FFB8 is indeed where that record starts, where the student is stored. Now, next, I'm printing out enter a new student record and asking for a first name, and let's put in Petra. And we're seeing that Petra is now stored in the student record at address FFB8 because it's the first component of the student record. Next, it's asking for a last name. And let's put in Taylor. And now Taylor is stored. I have to scroll to the right in my memory location. That's where Taylor is stored because we're looking at a big student record here that stores the first name, the last name, and all these other components. And so Taylor is stored a little bit further down. Next, I'm going to be asked for my birth year. 1989 sounds good. That is stored further to the right there. And finally, it's going to ask me for my average grade.